Hello, I'm Martijn Gaat and this is Does Logistics Matter? A podcast on trends and innovations in supply chain and logistics. Answering yes to the question today is Tim Brankin, Vice President Business Development and Communications at Eagle Rail. In this episode, we talk about the latest developments in global shipping, the growth in container shipping and the impact on ports, congestion in and around ports and what to do about it, and how to optimize and decarbonize first mile transportation in port areas. Please enjoy my conversation with Tim Brankin. Hi Tim, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Martijn. Great to be here.
The first question of this podcast is always the same, and that's, does logistics matter?
Yes, logistics definitely matters. It brought me here to Rotterdam, so always great to visit the Netherlands and lovely weather you're having here. We all know that 90% of the goods that we use, wear, consume, all ends up in a shipping container at some point in its journey. So logistics didn't matter or wasn't important to the population of the world, say, pre-pandemic, but we all understood what logistics, supply chain, and the problems that can come about if there are breakdowns or congestion in the logistics chain.
Yeah, there was somebody that told me that they'd found out that and they had no idea that logistics is like oxygen. Like we don't know that there's oxygen in the room here. It's just here. We just breathe until suddenly there's no oxygen, and then it becomes real apparent real fast. And I guess that that's for sure what the pandemic did. It took away the oxygen, and the people went, oh yeah. Oh man, there's just a whole system, a whole world that is making sure that the goods get where they're going.
Yeah, my family and friends knew I was in the logistics industry, but they didn't understand how it might affect them until there was a problem getting goods from the store. Shelves were empty. So yeah, it really put a spotlight on how important logistics are and how much further we need to go to improve the supply chain. So whether that's with greater visibility, greater data, greater transportation, more improved, efficient labor operations, there's so much more that we still need to achieve.
Absolutely. So the reason why it became front page news is obviously not bad, but it's really good that the industry finally is getting the attention and the credit that it's due. So how did you end up in logistics?
Yeah, great question. My background is financial services, so trading, brokerage, and financial technology or fintech.
Yeah.
Spent 25 years in the global financial industry, mainly in foreign exchange. So used to dealing with global trade, but more on a currency level. Mm-hmm. We provided the platforms and the technology to allow companies and individuals to transact foreign exchange trading.
Yeah.
My company was acquired by a London-based company probably 7 years ago, and the new owner wanted to close down the U.S. operations. So I reached out to my network, and one of my neighbors 2 blocks down, I knew he had been involved with this company called Eagle Rail, and I'd seen some newsletters that he had put out. And one thing led to another. After a few meetings and emails, I joined the company, and I guess it's probably 6 years ago now. So I've been in the logistics space only 6 years, but feels like I've learned quite a bit with everything that's happened over the last 3-4 years.
Well, yeah, you definitely joined in a very exciting and challenging time. So you're logistics keeps growing because global trade keeps growing. You were already mentioning 90% of everything that we see around us has been in a shipping container. For example, I know that one of the things that we do in the Netherlands is we are a trading nation. We have always had a lot of ships, and we're also fishermen. So what we do is some of the fish that we catch here in Dutch waters, we actually bring to China, and it's processed in China, and then it's brought back to the Netherlands and it gets I guess canned or whatever they did with it, and then sold in supermarkets. Just people don't realize how many stuff is being brought all over the world for many reasons. It's been growing, and it's good for the global economy, but it also has some definite negative effects. I mean, global shipping is, I guess, it's 3% of the carbon emissions.
Right.
So what effects of this growth in commerce do you see?
Sure. So McKinsey did a report, I think it was probably 30 or 40 years ago, and they've just updated it, and it was 50 years of the container shipping industry.
Yeah.
And they've shown through their research that the container volumes have been increasing by 3 to 5% for the last 50 years.
Yeah.
That trend does not look like it's going to slow down. It only looks like it's going to continue.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a number of reasons for that. One, more things are being containerized. It's the most efficient way to ship goods, whether it's cars, now even bulk commodities are being put in containers.
Yeah.
And you can also look at the growing middle class, whether that's in Asia, India specifically, now is the largest country in the world by population. Their middle class is growing exponentially. So those individuals, those families are going to need and want and have the ability to acquire more stuff.
Yeah.
So if you look at 50 years from now, if you're growing at a 2 to 5% or 3 to 5% rate per year, it only takes 20, 30 years where you're going to be doubling the volumes that are currently being seen around the world. So yeah, the containerization of things and also globalization is probably not going to stop. There's been talk about nearshoring, onshoring, specifically in the U.S. and I'm sure here in Europe as well. Yeah. We rely on maybe one or two main countries, mainly China, for a lot of the things that we use on a daily basis. I don't think we're going to reshore a lot of those jobs in the U.S. or probably Europe. So maybe they'll move. It's already been happening for a few years. They're moving to other countries in Asia where, again, globalization and you're looking for the most efficient manner to produce goods if you're a company.
Yeah.
So like you said with the example of the fisheries where you're catching fish here, you're sending it to China, processing it there and bringing it back.
Yeah.
That's going to continue to grow and be something that companies will continue to seek because you're always looking for the most efficient and optimal producer of your end goods.
Yeah. Yeah, and we have a lot of ocean, so there's a lot of room for ships to maneuver, and that's good. They're getting bigger. I think the biggest ship is now 24,000 plus containers, and I think the biggest ship recently visited the port of Rotterdam here. You really can't believe it if you see it, the size of these things. Well, and it's getting busier on the oceans, but the oceans are large. I'm guessing that or I know that the problems start more as soon as these ships are coming closer to shore, because our shores are getting busy as well, and there's a lot of congestion. There's congestion at the Panama Canal. There's been congestion with ships, at many ports. It's creating some definite issues.
Yes, all we have to do is go back a few years, and outside of LA Long Beach, there was 110 container vessels waiting to dock at either LA or Long Beach.
110.
110. Now you're seeing also some labor work stoppage issues on the West Coast, and containers and also ships are starting to back up on the West Coast. So we're almost going to see a mini repeat, unfortunately, of what happened at the peak of congestion. The 24,000 TEU ships, unless you see one, you really can't fathom it. A picture will do some justice to it. But again, a few years ago, the largest ship had 10,000 containers on it, and now we're at 24,000. There will be a peak. Are we going to go to 30,000, 35? I don't know, because you start losing your unit cost. Shipping is still very competitive at that 24,000.
Yeah.
It would obviously go a little bit lower, but the problems that these larger ships bring to ports can't be ignored anymore. And we're seeing it all over the world, where once these ships do dock and you have to move 2,000, 4,000, 6,000 containers off that ship, it causes a lot of problems.
Yeah, because these containers are then in the port, but then they need to go out. Now, some of these go on other ships and leave that way, but the most need to go from the port on land.
Yeah, speaking from a U.S.-centric point of view, because I live in the U.S., all the ships that come into the West Coast, those goods are coming off. They're not being transshipped, so you're bringing those boxes inland onto the port. And that's where some of the problems begin, is what do you do with 2,000, 4,000 containers? You can stack some on the terminal, but that's not a really efficient use of your real estate that you might have at your port.
Yeah.
And ports almost universally around the globe, unless it's a greenfield, a new project or a new port, a lot of ports are built in cities or city centers. They're landlocked.
Yeah.
They can't expand even if they wanted to. And if they can expand, the city and the government and the local citizens don't want to give the ports any more of this valuable real estate that exists on the shore. They want to use that for recreation, for tourism. So it's a problem. If you're looking at 20, 30 years down the road, how are you going to handle 20, 30, 100% more boxes coming in and also leaving? It's a two-way transaction in a lot of ports. You've got to get empties back on the ship, back to Asia, and then load them back up and ship goods back to the U.S. or Europe or the rest of the world.
Yeah. Now there are several ways to get containers out of ports. There's inland shipping. I don't know. Is there a much inland shipping done in the U.S.?
There's not. There's talk about it because we do have some waterways and rivers that could accommodate. There is not a lot of barge traffic right now moving containers in the U.S. I know here in the Netherlands you have ample waterways, and that's
we actually have inland container terminals.
Yeah, so there's talk of that, but you're going to run into the same issues. I think a lot of ports, if they want to expand their footprint, you're going to get a pushback from the local government, the local citizens. They don't want these larger ships on a, say, river or canal taking up space and worry about safety issues.
Yeah. So and then there's rail. Well, I'm not sure what the situation is with the American ports. I guess all the ports are connected to rail connection, but are a lot of containers leaving by rail?
Yeah. So there is, depending on the port. So if you look at Savannah in Georgia, they've got their mega rail project that they've built basically from the ground up. They've got unbelievable rail connection directly connected to the port. Same in Long Beach. They've got a sufficient rail connection at some of the terminals there, but a lot of the ports don't have a rail that connects directly to the port terminal. And it's literally impossible or very difficult to try to bring ground rail into an existing port that is in a city, because ground rail or trains are a very efficient method to move containers or any type of goods, but they do take up ground space.
Yeah.
And you have to build a wagon of, say, 50 or 100 cars to make it worth, that energy savings and that efficiency that you get. So if you have a 100-car train wagon going through your city, then you're blocking pedestrians, cars, any other mode of transportation from getting around that city.
And I think if you look in Europe, I think 100-car train is just, that's almost like if you put on the last container, the first container is going to be in Germany already.
Right.
If you look at the Netherlands, right, we're small. Plus, we have a very busy rail system. Although I'm not a rail traffic, rail freight specialist in any way. So a lot of containers leave by train, but I mean most of them go out by truck.
They do. It's the same method that's been used since the container has been in existence. So you're looking at 60 plus years of putting a container on a chassis and then moving that to whether it's its final destination, but a lot of times it's going to an inland drop-off point. So whether that's an inland container depot or a rail yard that's inland from the port. So it's not, if you've got a rail yard near a port, the best way right now is to move those containers by truck, because you can do it on demand, one at a time. You don't have to build a train car. And if you don't have any type of rail already set down, then you just, you put it on a 20 or 30-year-old diesel truck, and that truck will do, 1 or 2 turns a day to try to get a container out of the port to that destination. Problem is that when you've got this congestion from these larger ships unloading 2,000, 4,000 containers at a time, you've got this, you've only got so much throughput.
Yeah.
So you're trying to, I remember Gene Soroka, Port of LA, he's like, this is during the height of the pandemic. He's like, we're trying to take 10 lanes of traffic and squeeze them through 5 lanes.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't happen. So you see the trucks backing up for 1, 2, 3 hours just to get one container. So these trucks are idling. They're, again, taking up ground space in and around the ports.
Yep.
You've got the diesel emissions. You've got the wear and tear that they actually inflict on the roads.
On the roads, yeah.
The starting and stopping of the trucks are horrible.
Yeah.
Plus
a lot of safety issues. I mean, the more trucks on the road, it kills visibility.
Yes, it certainly does. And then you're also looking at the noise pollution and the emissions that the people in and around the ports, if you're near these trucks, you have to deal with. And it's pretty bad. So if you've never been in and around a port with trucks barreling down your neighborhood streets, it's not somewhere you want to live.
So how can we solve this issue? Because you know a solution.
I do. And people have looked at this for a while. If you take the advances that has happened in the ocean carriers with the larger ships, bringing the cost of shipping way down. Now you're hopefully going to start utilizing greener fuels because, as you said, the container shipping industry is a pretty big proponent of or contributor of greenhouse gases.
Yes.
So if you have, say, green methanol, hydrogen is being talked about as well. That helps. That technology is great. On land, you've got more efficient trains that are coming online. I just saw that there's an electric train that one of the U.S. Class 1 rail operators just is testing out. You're always going to look at, okay, well, what's the battery range on this and how long is it going to take to charge?
Yeah.
And then you've had a lot of technology developed to try to make things more efficient. So the Flexports of the world, the digital freight forwarders, trying to optimize the supply chain and logistics as best you can. That's all great. Eagle Rail Container Logistics, our company, is trying to solve that short haul repetitive move. So the drayage industry, which is actually a Dutch term, by the way, originated from the dray horses that used to move containers, or move not containers. This is 100 plus years ago.
Yeah.
It was a dray horse, so that name has stuck and is now universal. So the drayage industry. So Eagle Rail is looking to solve that short haul repetitive route. Instead of using diesel trucks, we have an overhead light rail system, 100% electric, that can lift containers and fly it over, quote unquote, over any congestion you have on the ground. So that's rail traffic, car traffic, pedestrian traffic. We can run along an existing right of way that a power company or rail may have. So we're the best of, say, rail, traditional ground rail, and trucking, all built into one, because you can move containers out one at a time rather than build a rail car, and get those containers off your port terminal, where that land is so valuable and so precious and so limited, and move those containers inland 5, 10, 15 kilometers away from the port terminal, where land is more readily available, and you might have greater connectivity to a rail yard or a long-haul trucking facility.
Yeah.
So that's our solution for that. So that's why I'm here in Rotterdam, is to meet with some folks at the TOC conference that's happening here this week.
Yeah. So so now what you see here in the port of Rotterdam and in other ports is that the first, I don't know if it's first 100 meters or the first kilometer maybe, that these containers move. They move on these are automatically self-driving, like self-driving trucks.
Yep.
They put the container on it. So what would happen is the crane would put the container on a self-driving truck or self-driving trailer. Then it would move to an Eagle Rail station where the container is grabbed from the truck, and then it can start moving straight away to whatever destination the rail is connected to.
Exactly. And we can tie into the ship's TOS system, the terminal operating software, to know that, hey, here comes, let's say it's MSC Oscar, one of the 24,000 TEU ships. And okay, out of the 24,000 containers that are on this vessel, 2,000 are going to be unloaded, say, at the port of Rotterdam. 500 are going to go to an unlimited number of destinations. So you're not going to automate that with any type of Eagle Rail system. You're going to use a truck. But if you've got 30, 40% of those containers going to 1 or 2 or 3 different drop-off points, it makes total sense just to automate and connect those nodes, as we call them, with an Eagle Rail system. It's literally the same thing Amazon does with inside their warehouses, where if you go in, it's almost fully automated, and they've got conveyance or conveyor belts and conveyance systems moving boxes all around their warehouse. And they're all tracked, digitally, so you have 100% visibility on your goods or your box that's in that warehouse. We're doing the same thing, and we're doing that outside. And our founder, Mike Wachaki, likes to say we do what Amazon does with a 6-pound or a 60-pound box. We do it with a 60,000-pound. Sorry, I'm using pounds here in the.
Yeah, well, that's okay. I always forget how the pound and the kilogram
Exactly.
match up, but
yeah. So we're doing the same thing with that 60,000-pound container. We're robotically lifting it, shuttling it, and placing it down, and then can be moved by rail or by truck to the final destination.
Yeah, so you would move it to the inland terminal, or the train terminal, or a truck yard, or maybe if there's a factory or a distribution center with very, very high volume, you may even connect to a factory or to a distribution center to take care of that volume.
Yeah, so there's a port in the U.S. that we're in discussions with that has a big Amazon distribution facility that's located about 5 to 7 miles away from the terminal. And since we've introduced the idea of overhead conveyance for shipping containers, it started with a shorter system, and then it went to another, we can connect this yard, and we're doing a lot of green things in our port, and it's great. And we're buying all of our electricity from renewable sources.
Yeah.
But the city isn't very happy with their plans to increase volumes, because that means more trucks on the road.
Yeah.
So safety issues, emissions, congestion, wear and tear on the road. So your Department of Transportation has got to figure out, okay, how am I going to handle this many more trucks? So all of a sudden they're like, wait, we can connect our container terminal with this quote unquote monorail for shipping containers, and then fly them out to the Amazon warehouse and not use a truck.
Yeah.
So the light bulbs start lighting up when you start talking about this, and we've got great animations that show exactly how this could work. And also we use digital twin software. We call it's FlexSim, to model what your volume is and today, and also we can project out 20, 30, 40 years and determine, an Eagle Rail system would need this many carriers, this many lifters, and we can build it for 30, 40, 50 years. The track itself will stand 100 plus years.
Okay.
It's concrete, it's steel. Where I'm from, Chicago, has a famous elevated train system that we shortened, called the L.
Yeah.
It's been running for 100 plus years, same track. Of course, there's maintenance that needs to be done. There's new equipment, new cars, but that's what we're going to do with Eagle Rail. We're going to have that physical infrastructure, and we'll constantly improve that and add more carriers and more lifters as demand peaks.
Yeah, and it's electrically powered, so you can create a zero emission first mile, I guess, or maybe last mile if the things are coming from the distribution center and they're going to the port, because it's two ways, whether the containers are full or empty, right? They need to go back.
Correct. And it seems, doesn't seem, every port globally has a net zero initiative, whether they're going to be carbon neutral or zero emissions by 2030, 2040, 2050.
Yeah.
Every port we talk to has that in their mandate.
Yeah. So if you bring down the number of trucks that go to the port area, then the total emissions for that port goes down. Now the trucks still need to go and pick up the containers, but at least it's not going into a congested area where there'll be much more emissions than when there's no congestion and it's just an easy pickup and easy go.
Yeah, because the trucks are not very efficient when they're idling. That's actually when they're at the worst. So the particulate matter that diesel trucks produce, the NOx and SOx gases that contribute to, I think it's estimated at 20 to 50,000 premature deaths around the world every year.
Just
and if you're suffering from any type of respiratory issues, so
Yep.
asthma, it's the worst type of emissions out there. So, to electrify that with an Eagle Rail system uses 60% less energy, and that takes into effect a mix of still burning coal to produce some electricity, but also using natural gas and some renewable sources. But if you're sourcing your electricity, say from hydro, like a lot of countries do in the port areas, or
wind.
Wind
it's always wind in your port.
There's a huge initiative for wind production in the U.S. now. Finally, it's been in Europe. You guys are leading. It seems like everything when it comes to clean tech and green technology, we're lagging unless you look at some of the things that California is trying to do. But even just here in Rotterdam, I've seen electric cars. I took an electric car here. I saw an electric bus, tons of electric bikes.
Yeah, we have one of the first zero emission transportation companies in the Netherlands. Was started in here in Rotterdam as well. It's actually, for those listening, I think top of my head, it's episode number 4. Brightners, the company is called, which is and they've been front runners because even in the Netherlands, when it comes to trucking and electricity, it's difficult because the infrastructure for cars is perfect, but for trucks it's still quite challenging, especially long haul. So Tim, it sounds like you have a solid solution to solve some absolute current problems. If you look ahead, so what's in front of us? What's going to happen next?
Yeah, we've been at this 7 years, and we keep hearing repeatedly that this makes so much sense. And where are you guys at? Where can I see an Eagle Rail system? What port is it in? What inland yard is it in? We're getting close. And I think we've always been 100% electric, but now the push towards decarbonization, net zero, people are really taking a hard look at the transportation that is involved in moving goods around the world. So you've got the IMO, the International Maritime Organization, has a push towards cleaner fuels.
Yep.
Stop using the bunker fuel that is high in sulfur and horrible for the environment and for emissions. So I think we're finally at that inflection point where people are thinking, okay, how can we take CO2 emissions lower and these greenhouse gases? How do we do this? And it's like, well, it's not going to be easy, but you can chip away and look at different solutions and different modes of transportation. So I think that's going to be a tailwind for Eagle Rail, because again, you're taking these 20, 30, 40-year-old diesel trucks off the road. There's a saying in the port industry, the drayage industry is where old trucks go to die. They're not fit for over-the-road long-haul trucking, but they can make a 1 or 2 or 5 kilometer loop over and over again until they can't, and then they just junk that truck and move on. So I'm excited because I think Eagle Rail can be a contributor and a solution by taking trucks off the road, making roads safer in and around ports, and also improving the lives of people that live in and around ports. Those are usually marginalized communities, and I'm excited that we might be able to be a small part of that solution.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan. I think any initiative that helps bring down carbon emissions in the logistics and supply chain industry is a is a good cause. Thank you so much for talking to us about the growth in global commerce and the effects it has on the shipping industry and import areas and the inland areas. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Martin. It's great to meet you in person, and look forward to spending a week here in the beautiful city of Rotterdam.
It's one of the most beautiful cities in the world, but I'm in no way...
Agreed.
Yeah.
You're in no way biased. I get
No,
it.
no, absolutely not. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Does Logistics Matter? For more on trends and innovations in supply chain and logistics, visit our blog at logisticsmatter.com. If you want to be a guest on this podcast, please send an email to podcast@logisticsmatter.com. This podcast was produced by Dimitry VleugelThe, and the music is based on a sample by Ragaman and produced by Michael Spengler. This episode was supported by Eagle Rail. Eagle Rail is the smarter and cleaner way to connect container terminals with intermodal operations. It is the world's first 100% electric overhead container transportation solution, dramatically improving port and intermodal operations and efficiency. For more information, visit www.eaglerail.com.